Yeah, what do you tell? I was going to say, what do you think about the situation in Missouri, the Ferguson issues that came up, with that kid being killed? How do you see that?
None of us that aren't there. I get disturbed reading of cop shootings. The cops I know, I don't know any murderous, horrible cops, but yeah, I'm just disturbed as if it'd been my own son and the cop shot him 8 times, and he doesn't have a gun. I can see how it happens in the fray, but it's wrong. Yeah, anytime. Well, I'll digress for a minute and tell you that when my son was a policeman in Panama for the U.S. government in the Canal Zone, that they had the right kind of policy, I think, that may be hard to implement, that they had here, that their boss called them and said, hey, I want you guys to know how I feel about your reaction to making people uphold the law. And that is, you're a highly selected group, you're highly paid, and you're experts in the use of weaponry. I've got you always practicing and whatnot. So I can tell you what my general thing is, that if you get involved in the place where you shoot a guy because you thought he had a gun and he didn't, I'm not going to support you. I don't know, others object to say that that's not impossible, that the guy, I don't know, but I'd ask you, don't you feel that you just hope, I don't think that it's a murderous cop or anything, but there is something wrong with but I digress while you're not saying that. See, one of my cousins right now is the guy that was a lieutenant in the police force, and he's a lawyer and takes on cases with the police, and he was telling me, for example, a case that happened here where a Vietnamese lady gets all emotional with a knife in her hand, and the police guy shot and killed her. And he just told, and then eventually the police, he was exonerated by the cops, but if you remember, the family was awarded $2 million. And I have to agree when he told me that he is a cop, he is a supervisor, that he'd have clobbered his guys because there's no reason. You go for help, even if there's a lady with a right, okay, you need help, just back off and get 2-3 more cops, subdue her. But that's on the surface, we're not there, right? See, I don't have any doubt probably that, who knows, that the guy was probably obnoxious or something toward her. But I can't imagine, why do you have to shoot him 6 times?
Is, what could this region have Ferguson-type problems?
Well,
San Jose, Santa Clara County.
they certainly, they've had their share of contested shootings. The one I just mentioned, I think any region can have that. Now, I don't know. I don't think you'd have because their community is not. It's more widespread, right? I mean, you wouldn't have Ferguson. They're all blacks. See, remember, Watts was a big one. See, Watts was mainly black. I had an uncle lived in Watts, so I used to see him. And what happened in Watts, they also had just kind of like Ferguson, but a bigger scale. When the cops came in, almost all the cops were white. So to the people, it becomes an us and them situation. When I think what you want is that some of those police would be, who knows, even lived in that community. But when you say the situation of the rising, I don't think we've seen that too bad. We've seen it start up a couple of times, but they've had their share of shootings. They block off the back, the front, overpowered. It wouldn't happen. And so anyway, they just awarded the children of the guy that got killed a couple $1 million. But
I'm trying to.
And Richard himself was a poor kid, not as good. And And like guys that having a hard time getting, he joined the Marines and went for 4 years. And then when he got out, he did what we hope a lot of them do now. He went to school. He got a degree out of Sacramento, San Jose State, and became a cop. And as far as we know, was a stupendous cop. Liked to be a cop in the Mexican barrio. When he got killed, it was, if you heard about it, he was killed by a black young guy who was, did you know that guy that killed him, that his own father was a policeman and his brother was a policeman? I don't know if you knew that. To backtrack to get that the kid himself was a drug addict, crazy guy. He didn't know Richard. He'd never seen Richard. He turned out the guy hated his father, got in an argument with his girlfriend, and he was a youngish man. And Richard was sitting in the car giving a couple of Latinos a ticket on the car, young kids, young guys. And the guy stuck his gun through the window and shot him. It's on 10th Street, right close to where my mother lives, and killed him. Of interest, and even Tommy, the guy that I'm telling you is a lawyer cop now, he had done what happened to a lot when Tommy himself was his father was abusive, and Tommy was a problem guy, and Tommy got thrown in jail in L.A. as a 16-year-old. And let's say he had the good fortune that a probation officer said, hey, there's a war going on in Vietnam, and this judge sure is lenient to guys that want to serve their country. Would you want to serve? Yes, sir. He joined the Navy. And he put in a bunch of years. He was in riverboats. And when he got out, he did what Tommy did. Graduated, they say, got a master's degree in law enforcement. And that's what Tommy became one of the first guys to rise.
What was his last name?
Perez. Tommy Perez. Tom Perez.
Here in San Jose?
Yeah.
Okay. And he was on the San Jose Police Department?
Huh?
Was he on the San Jose Police Department?
Well, when you want a big spreader, Richard Brito tried to give, he got him. You mentioned, you can ask Jack Brito, because Jack thinks he did a lot for Tommy. Tommy became, I think, one of the first lieutenants. And McNamara, who came in and was very conscious of what we're talking about, wanted a police force to reflect in the community, sent Tommy, who was the first sergeant sent to the University of Michigan or whatever it is to study. They paid his way back to take the police exam, the lieutenant exam. He was made a lieutenant. And McNamara told this to Jack. Jack would tell you that McNamara said, that's going to be the next chief of police. He said, this guy's got it. And then it didn't turn out because mi primo, Tommy, did the foolish thing. He got divorced. And then the next thing we knew, he was habitating with a young lady who turned out to be 17, whose mother brought charges against Tommy. And Tommy, for quite a while, was scared us. He could go to prison. He didn't. He retired, and Jack will give Jack takes a lot of credit that he got him to let him out. And then, no, Tommy didn't quit there. There's where the luck out. He gets out, and I think even the city paid. He went to law school and became a lawyer. In fact, he was one of the lawyers on the case. I remember the guy in Los Angeles that caused all that commotion and the watch thing, the cop that got kicked, and the black guy that got...
Rodney King?
Yeah, Rodney King. Tommy wasn't the big one. Tommy was just a brand new one. And Tommy then ran a law enforcement program for a community college in L.A. And somewhere in there he decided to get into he's been defending cops up to now. You'll get to meet him. In fact, he's in real bad shape physically. But anyway, those are the early guys. His dad was an abusive man, a good uncle. We liked him, but he was a guy whose idea of fun every Saturday was to go to the bar and get into fights. And Tommy himself, and Richard had a wonderful father, but they were very poor.
I want to back up a little bit and talk about Richard Huerta. We're talking about Richard Huerta, a San Jose police officer who was killed, I think, in around 1970. So again, tell me your connection to Richard Huerta.
Well, Richard Huerta's mother is my dad's half-sister. She died too. His mother was my dad's half-sister.
But you knew Richard Huerta.
Oh, no, Richard Huerta was an accomplished piano accordionist after he became a cop. He actually gave piano lessons. He was teaching my daughter to play the piano accordion. No, he was just a wonderful guy. I think a superb cop.
So you know him as a teen? As a young man?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so what was his career path? He went to college?
He was just he went to college after he joined, after 18 or so, he joined the Marines. Went and served 4 years in the Marines, which qualified him for the GI Bill of Rights, which I think is a great pathway for anybody, especially Latinos. When he got out, now he's got a paid for education, and instead of just doing nothing or getting in the wrong field, he got law enforcement. He became a cop. In fact, one of the reasons that Tommy became a cop was that when Tommy got out of the Navy, Richard Huerta would take him on, the police rides when they're going. And, hey, Tommy, this is a great profession, So when Richard got killed, and of course he was very close to Tommy, or before Tommy joined the police force himself. They were both serving concurrently toward the end, but Richard was a long time ago. He didn't, but when we said in his case, if you didn't know this, you know that his killer is in jail right now?
No, I didn't know that.
And that story is a sad story on the other side.
Yeah, tell me, remind, who, he was excuse me.
Yeah.
Richard Huerta was a policeman in the late 60s.
Yeah, because he'd been a cop 8 or 10 years when he got killed.
Okay, so tell us again, how did he get killed?
He was just on duty, and I'll digress for a minute if you ever want to know everything exactly, if you get in the computer. No, it's amazing, because that's what I did when you questioned it. What I did, I got on the computer, put San Jose Police Department, Richard Huerta police officer, and they got a lengthy report on that transpired. Had nothing to do with him, and the thing is that he was just on duty, and apparently he'd stopped a couple of young Latinos for traffic violations. No trouble with them. He was friendly. He had them sit in the car with him while he gave him a ticket at night. But meanwhile, you got this young black, I don't know if he was really only 15 or 16, I don't know what his age was. It's a mixed-up kid, had been in the police, whose own father was a lieutenant in Oakland, and brother was a cop in Oakland, and who really hated his father, mixed up psychologically guy. And then he'd gotten in a fight with his girlfriend, and out of that, what is the kind of guy to decide to kill a cop? In other words, he wasn't looking for Richard.
So what happened?
Well, the guy saw the police car parked on 10th Street. I think it was about 10 at night or so. Parked and then just walked around, caught him completely unawares. Richard is just sitting in the car, and he just walked up to the open window and bang, bang, bang. You know who Covarrubias was?
Yeah.
I didn't know Covarrubias.
The
guy that became the police chief.
Yes.
Yeah. He was a good friend of Richard, apparently. We didn't know this, that they either entered together. And the reason I bring this in is that when I got out of the service, one of Richard's sister asked me, Ernie, we're sending a lawyer up to the prison or something, asking that they don't parole a guy. And, I know you were close to Richard, and I told her, I didn't review it. I said, but I said, I wouldn't feel right about doing that. I said, that happened years ago, and we got a police system with a, parole board. I realize it's nice to say, I love my cousin, and he should be, but hell, that's the duty of the police board. And I was going to say that Covarrubias, he said every year, or every time it went out, he went up and made sure that the blacks stayed in. He he killed his best friend and a good. But he was killed. Nothing to do in his case with his race or the guy's race that killed him, even though he was black. But he didn't kill him because it wasn't a thing of black looking for a Chicano. To the credit of Tommy, you can tell it, because Tommy tells me that years later. Well, I'll backtrack for a minute. When my mother told me, they had a big parade apparently for Richard. And that's funny. Up to then he'd been nothing. Negrito Mexicano. Just a nice cop. There was 1,000 cops or so from the area. They paraded in his honor and all that stuff. You know, and like I said, Tommy Perez was just beholden to Richard for having interested him in a career. He never knew anything about being a policeman, and got him in. Oh, I was going to tell you that I got out of the service in 72 or 3, about 70, 80 maybe, got a visit from my son, who was just a young punk, had become a cop in the Panama Canal Zone. And he's one of these super duper, his idea, when he came here on vacation, he'd go and get a ride with the San Jose police cops to see how they were doing. And he was here when one of those Mexican shootings happened that I thought you were probably, and it was a guy that it raised a lot of ire. The Chicano community rose up in arms. The guy apparently was sitting in the car. First of all, he did have a big background. He'd been beat up his girl or something, but at least the write-up was that when he was in the car, 2 cops came, one on each side, and that they told him to get your hands up. Now their story, that he reached down here to get what they assumed was a gun, and they both shot him. They killed him. And the community then rose up. Like you're saying, they killed him because he's Mexican. I asked my son Mike, and he was different when he was here as a cop, and that's when he told me the story of their different policy. He said, Dad, there's no doubt in my mind they didn't shoot him because he was Mexican or something. They were scared. They were afraid. I mean, they're not as well trained as patting himself on the back. When the guy's reaching down, they thought he's going for a gun, and he's coming up, and they both shot him. But that's why they shot him. I mean, it happened to be that he was Mexican. It had a big one. But see, going in, you know, these things have different. One day when I went to Moxa, they used to hold meetings, and they had, when we talk about attitude toward cops, they had just started pushing to get, in this case, women, and had hired a couple of Mexican women police officers. And they had one that was being fired. You know, she hadn't been there long. And oh boy, that community group in Moxa in the board meeting were riled up. They were going to, demanded, I guess they meant to meet with the mayor, meet with everybody. We only got what Chicana hired recently. I happened to be there just, what I would do since I was working for the county, just sitting like this, observing what's going on. Among the guys said there was a guy I knew who was a police officer in San Jose, but dressed like you are. And I asked him, I said, what do you know about that gal that's being fired? And he said, hey, if she'd been a gringa, she'd been fired a long time ago. I mean, see, that's what we're guilty of. He said, terrible. She's an old cop. Jesus. And I said, well, hell, look what they're doing. They're making a meeting. Why don't you speak up? Oh, no, I don't. That's what I mean. I don't know if they went to the meeting, but I can guarantee you that if they did, they didn't succeed. But see, we fall guilty of that, don't we? And I said, oh, he said, if she'd been a white girl, it wouldn't be sitting here. They'd have canned her months ago. She just wasn't a cop material.
Do you know what the outcome of the whole thing was? Do you remember?
No, but I'm sure she was fired, I'm sure. I know, because we'd never heard. So I'm sure that if it came up what he told me, he was a member of the Chicano Peace Officers Association, whatever it is. But see, I think they do it wrong there, don't you think? I think now that he should have spoken up and said, hey, you guys, just so you don't get embarrassed and caught cold. I don't know what you know about this lady, but here's what I know about her record. You know, she deserves to be fired. She